Welcome. I'd like to take just a minute to remind everybody that we have our biggest fundraiser and event about to happen on January 31st. Those of you who want to come to the awards dinner and see our celebration of community excellence, we'd love to have you there. I would take your reservation today, or you can do it online, or you can call me at the office. But it's going to be a great affair on January 31st out at the Foxborough Holiday Inn. We also have a professional women's network coming up, which Kathleen is spearheading and helping us with. Jan is one of the sponsors, and will be there also. We have a flyer. Next month, we have Jan as our speaker here on setting goals for 2013, so I hope that we'll see you all and even bring a friend. And then lastly, I'd like to turn it over to our wonderful sponsor, Workers Credit Union, Jeff Turcott, who I know you've all seen before, but we're always happy to welcome you, and we thank you again for your sponsorship.
Jeff has gifts.
And Jeff has gifts.
That's why I'm here. But before I get started, I think maybe if we kind of go around the room, give a quick 30-second introduction to start. Why don't we start right over here and just give a quick 30-second.
Cinema Color 101 Self-Indulgence Spa and Fitness in West Concord. Been there for 8 years, and we do everything from skin health, relaxation, and we're there for all your needs.
And if you didn't see Cindy on Chronicle a few weeks back,
Yeah.
it was neat.
Should be signing brochures afterwards.
Thank you.
Lori Smith-Fraley, I'm with Technology, which is a daily money management company. A lot of seniors these days have trouble staying on top of bills and just basic personal finance matters. So I go in, I'm called in sometimes by adult children to help with matters that can be as basic as weeding through the mail before we get bills paid and bank and credit card statements reconciled. I also help busy professionals who would rather spend their Saturday mornings with their families than with their virtual banks. And frequent travelers also call on me when they're going to be away from their mail for a length of time. So it basically helps people navigate bills, budgets, and financial record keeping. And I'm starting my 8th year, and I'm delighted to be here today.
Dee Schweppe Lighting Design, and one-on-one self-indulgence. Schweppe Lighting Design, we specialize in high-end commercial, hospitality, residential. Basically the only thing we don't do is warehouses. Anything else we definitely do work on, and we're going into our 27th year.
Congratulations. That's great.
Still alive.
I'm Thomas Buckborough of Thomas Buckborough and Associates. We've had our design build remodeling business for 25 years. It's the beginning of our 25th-year anniversary. We do all kinds of remodeling for anything from small jobs to large jobs, from architectural design through construction, total care and cool design.
I'm Kiki Tobin, and I'm with Active Life Physical Therapy, and I specialize in chronic injury and getting people that have had less than good luck elsewhere getting better and back to their active lives. And then I also run In Motion Cycling Studio, which is an indoor spinning studio in Westford, and I'm doing that since September. So, that's it.
Hi, I'm Jan Stewart. I'm a leadership and career coach. I help people find success in their career, whether they're working now and not finding satisfaction, or perhaps they're unemployed and looking for the next step. I also offer seminars with my business partner on a host of different topics that are structured primarily around leadership.
Hi, I'm Kathleen Beth, and I think most of you know me, but I call myself a serial entrepreneur because I have my hand in a lot of different businesses, but they all revolve around writing, editing, and words. I just enjoy words so much, and I like to take what you have to say and translate it into words that other people will understand. Sometimes we get caught up in the jargon of our own lives, and so I translate your language into everyday language. I like to call myself the grammar girl.
How about you, Bob?
Okay, Bob Gottlieb, I'm the man behind the camera, and I'm with SEPTA Marketing Group, a full-service marketing agency in Maynard, And we provide traditional and social media marketing to small and mid-sized businesses. And I also like to do these things for the chamber, so.
Great. And I'm gonna introduce Bully in a minute, so if you don't mind.
Yeah.
Go ahead. Since we're the sponsor, I'm gonna take a little more than 30 seconds. As you know, I'm Jeff Turcott. I'm a commercial loan officer for Workers Credit Union. And if you don't know, yes, the credit union writes commercial loans as well. We're a Massachusetts-based credit union with over $9 million worth of assets. So we're the second largest credit union in our market, based in Massachusetts. So we have the capability. The one thing that we enjoy doing is getting to know our customers, and that's some of the first things that we do is get to know our customers before we even hear most of the details of an opportunity. Really want to get to know our customers and let them get to know us, so we know what each other's expectations are. And that's really been a lot of the focus of the credit union as well. So we have a branch here in Acton. We're going to have a dine around in February.
February 26th.
In Acton, so come by and meet our great staff. Michelle, formerly Fitzgerald, now Robbins, who used to be at Middlesex Savings Bank in Littleton for a very long time, is now in the Acton office. So come by and say hi. I kind of drag her with me. Last fall, we started talking about what we're going to do in the winter months, and we started talking about all the technology that's out there. I don't know if anyone either received or gave an iPad mini to anyone over Christmas. I bought 2 and distributed them. Weren't cheap, but what a great tool these mobile devices are. And so how can a business utilize some of that technology in cloud computing? So Pooley's always great to come up with titles. So how about get your head in the clouds, cloud computing? So that's what we're going to talk about this morning. Pooley is a professor at Bentley College. He's also a business coach as well, full-time for small businesses, helping them get to the point where they want to be through marketing, through process, through motivation, all those kind of things. So I welcome Jim Pouliopoulos.
Thank you. Yes, please call me Pooley. So, Jan, I know Karen Spinnaco.
Yes, who's also at Bentley.
Oh, that's right, yeah, so we run in the same circles. Those are good circles to run in. So thanks everyone for coming here today. One of the reasons why this is a good topic, or why I know it's a good topic, is because I did a time management workshop as one of these business education series almost a year ago, I think. It was quite a while ago. And I had one slide on cloud computing and how it can save you time and money and so forth. And it's the one slide that most people ask the most questions about and want to learn the most about. So we decided that we would expand it and turn it into a longer length seminar. So we're going to talk about cloud computing. It's one of those things that there's a lot of marketing hype around it, and there's a lot of actual value around it. So we'll try to sort through that so you can understand what the difference is. But let me tell you why I am suited to talk about cloud computing. One, I'm a business coach, and I work with business owners all the time, and one of the biggest problems they have is their technology. Too many business owners spend too much time tinkering and troubleshooting and installing software and upgrading software and calling their helpline and getting an IT person in to do the work. It is a huge waste of time, and when you add it up, it's millions, if not billions of dollars worth of time and money spent by small business owners across the country. So that's one thing. I see that a lot as a business coach. The second thing, I'm a user of this technology. I run my own business, and so what we're going to talk about today is certainly in terms of the specific applications we're going to talk about. In all cases, I use them. I'm not advocating for one over another, but I can tell you how I use the particular one that I use, just to give you an idea of what it does for me as I run both a business coaching service and teach full-time at a university. So it's, and there's the, love the sound, Bob, that's great. I think I heard that at one-on-one self-indulgent spa.
Oh, that music?
That music, yeah.
Sorry.
Not on a cell phone though.
That's right. So I am a user, I am a business coach, and the third thing is I am a geek. I'm a nerd. I'm a recovering engineer. When I graduated high school, I went to WPI. I got my bachelor's degree in electrical engineering. Then I went to RPI. I got my master's degree in engineering. And then I realized I didn't like engineering. But I have that technical background. I like technology. I like playing around with it. I like tinkering with it. I used to build robots in my basement, don't tell anyone, right? But I used to do that when I was younger. And so, as time went on, and I went into sales and marketing and got my MBA and became a business coach, I still have that sort of interest in technology. And I know personally, before cloud computing and before all of this technology was available to make it easy for us to use different kinds of applications from the internet, I know that I personally spent way too much time on my own technology, even before I had a business. I just remember, troubleshooting my computer and debugging and calling the helpline and doing all those things that just drove me nuts, and yet I was one of those people that couldn't let it go. I liked solving the problem because I figured I was an engineer, I haven't paid all that money to have that education, so I would spend all that time to fix the problem when, really, I could have had it fixed for maybe $90 on a helpline or something, right? So anyway, so that's why I think I have the credibility to talk about this. So, what is cloud computing? Right? So let me ask you all, what do you think cloud computing is? What do you know about it? What do you think that term means to you?
When I think of cloud computing, I think of just storing files someplace other than on a server or your own hard drive.
Excellent. Yep. Very good.
Sharing files with other people in remote, in disparate places.
Excellent. Yep. That's another element of it. Anyone else? Any other element of cloud computing? Okay, so here's the definition of cloud computing. Cloud computing is the use of computing software, of computing resources, hardware and software that are delivered as a service over a network, typically the internet. The name comes from the use of a cloud-shaped symbol as an abstraction for the complex infrastructure it contains in system diagrams. Isn't this great? Cloud computing entrusts remote services with a user's data, software, and computation. And that is taken from Wikipedia, which is a cloud-based encyclopedia, okay? So it's a very long and detailed definition, but basically, for a simpler definition, it's the things you all just touched upon. That is, it's computing with a service, where the application, with the software and the storage of the data is out there somewhere, on the internet typically, right? And it's not something that resides necessarily in your office, in your facility, in your home. But all of the computing, the smarts of the applications that you use and the data that's stored is out there. And if you think about it, Jeff mentioned iPad minis and and Apple iPads and all these different tablets. When you go out and buy one of these, they don't really have a lot of storage capability. 16 gigabytes, 32 gigabytes. We've gotten used to buying laptops with 250 gigabytes of storage and filling that up pretty rapidly. We've gotten used to talking in terms of hundreds of gigabytes and even terabytes of storage, which is a lot of storage, right? So what cloud computing does, because the data is out there, it removes the burden of having to buy expensive devices and buy lots of memory and store everything locally just so you can use it, right? But that's one way to look at it.
When I was looking at the iPad
Yep.
minis, I went to Best Buy, and of course they have the display, and I said, oh, there's no reason to buy anything other than a 16 gig.
Right.
Really.
Exactly.
Unless, my daughter's gonna store all of her iTunes
Right.
on that, and she'd never even fill up 16 gig anyway.
Exactly.
So I said, okay, I'll take 2 of the 16 gig. Well, we don't have any of those. Well, no kidding, you don't. We got plenty of the 32 and the 64.
Right.
Of course you do.
Exactly.
Why do I need
Because
that?
there's less of a need to have that much storage.
I just need the appliance.
Just need the appliance, right? You just need the access point for
Right.
the service. So this is sort of the typical kind of cloud that, I worked at IBM for 13 years, and we do lots of clouds, where you've got some device, whether it's a tablet, a desktop, a server, a laptop, a smartphone, accessing information through the cloud. So there's databases of information, there are applications, there are calendars and ways to collaborate, you can monitor things on the network. All this is out there on the network. And this is not intended to be sort of a technical diagram, but it's just to give you a sense that any kind of device that you can connect to the internet typically is able to access these applications and this data. Right? So I'm going to ask a very simple question. What is this?
An electrical outlet.
An electrical outlet, yes, excellent. What does the electrical outlet do for you?
It's power.
It provides you power. Where does that power come from?
Wires.
Wires. Where do the wires lead?
More wires.
More wires. Bigger wires, right? Wait, Kathleen, I know that in your neighborhood, it doesn't always provide power, especially when there's a windy day, right?
That's why we have a generator.
Because I stalk you on Facebook and I know when your power's out. So this outlet provides you power, the wires go out, they go out of your home, out of your business, up to some electrical poles, or if you're in a fancy neighborhood, the wires are underground, right? Eventually they make their way through a grid of wires and electric poles and so forth to a power facility. There's one up in Niagara Falls, right? That generates power as the water falls off of these fans. There are nuclear power plants. There are, steam power plants. There are coal-fired power plants. There are all these power plants providing electricity. Here's a trickier question. You may need a little bit of engineering background to understand this. So when I plug something into this outlet, what is the voltage that comes out of this?
Depends on, generally 120.
120, right? Dee, I knew you'd have the answer. Most people don't, which shocks me. You get it?
Thank you, I'll be here.
So, tip your waiters. So 120 volts comes out of this outlet. Everything that you buy that plugs into an outlet, for the most part, runs on 120 volts. That seems pretty convenient, right? That if you buy an appliance and you plug it into an outlet in the wall, you're going to get power to that appliance and it's going to work. It wasn't always this way. And I'm telling you this little story because this is how you will understand why cloud computing has evolved to where it is today. Hundreds of years ago, when people built factories, they built them next to rivers. They used the water to power the factory. There was no electricity. They just put pulleys and gears and so forth running off the water. Then people started developing electric generators. And every factory that wanted to use electricity to run its motors and its factory would build its own little power plant next to the factory. And because this factory was building its own power plant, they might be generating 1,000 volts of power. Down the ways a bit, maybe there's a different factory. They built their own generator that generated 10,000 volts. In the next county, there was another factory that maybe built a generator that only generated 500 volts. And so you had these factories all over the place generating their own power. Right? You got the picture.
Mm-hmm.
What happens when that power plant stops working for some reason? No power.
No power.
Who fixes
Like
it?
at my house.
Like in your house. So who fixes that problem, typically?
The owner of the power plant?
The owner of the power plant, right? There was no electric utility he could call and say, hey, power's down, send someone out here. So that meant they had to have people on to fix the electric power and manage it and maintain it. But those people that were experts in 1,000-volt power were not experts necessarily in 10,000-volt generation or 500-volt generation. If I want to add a new piece of equipment to a factory where I generate my own electricity, what are some of the challenges I'm going to have doing that?
It's got to be custom built.
I've got to have it custom built. Certainly the piece that takes the power in and generates the energy has to be built to work with the power that I'm generating, right? So as these factories evolved, it became very much a singular kind of a thing. You had a factory, you had your own power plant, you needed customized equipment, you needed people to fix it. You were kind of on your own. Now think about that in terms of the software that we used to install on our laptops and desktop machines. Once you buy a computer, you take two computers out of the box, you put them next to each other, you install some software. The moment you start to install software, you have two completely different machines. Because the hardware is just the hardware. But now you've got this software that conflicts with that piece of software, it has to work with that software. So over time, these factories evolved to the point where they were very much isolated from one another. And then Thomas Edison and a bunch of others came up with this idea of, why don't we generate power and just send it out to the country? And people will just hook up their wires to these poles and run power down into the factories. We'll have one voltage that everyone can use. Let's say it's 120 volts. Everything has to work off of 120 volts. Suddenly, those factories didn't have to spend time fixing their own power generator. They didn't have to buy custom equipment. They could just buy off-the-shelf stuff. They didn't have to know anything about power generation. So in terms of knowledge and resources, they didn't have to have any of that available to them. They could just focus on whatever it was that they built. They could focus on what they did that was important and strategic. So this is not just a picture of an outlet off the wall. This is an analogy for cloud computing. We've arrived at a time where all you have to do is plug something into the wall, and I'm sure you all do with your cable provider or your internet provider. You just plug in a cable into the wall. You've got a laptop or a desktop machine with a browser. You don't know all the ins and outs of the technology. You just know that if I plug in here, I have access to the internet, and it works for the most part. Right? So we've arrived at a time where this is going to be the new way of computing going forward, where everyday people and even experts no longer will have to know much about how the application is developed, how the data is delivered, or even how to keep it up and running, because it's in somebody else's area of expertise to manage. 71% of experts say that over the next decade, cloud computing, the delivery of applications and data over the internet like this will become the dominant form of computing in the world. Right? So all those expensive desktop machines and expensive laptop machines become almost redundant, almost too much power. Google just introduced the Google Chromebook, which is a laptop that really is just a browser and a battery and a keyboard. There's a very little local storage. It's really good at connecting over the network and accessing all these cloud computing. It's like $250. Really inexpensive. Really inexpensive tablets. Not the Apple, unfortunately. But other tablets are really inexpensive because they do a lot of this stuff over the cloud. So what is important about cloud computing? Well, access and mobility with a couple asterisks, right? So you can access your information and your applications from anywhere. You can get to your data. You can run those applications. I showed up here today. There's a laptop sitting here that's always here for these presentations. If I wanted to run my business today from this location, I could easily connect to everything that I do for my business from this browser on this laptop. The caveats obviously are you have to have an internet connection, right? Which today has become less of an issue. Think back 10 years. Think back to the modem, that screechy, right? Connecting, downloading your email on AOL, and then disconnecting, right? Because of the long distance charges, okay? That's a thing of the past. There are very few public places you can go today where there's no Wi-Fi. I've got a little gizmo in my laptop bag. It's a Verizon MiFi. It's about the size of a credit card. And if I'm anywhere and I don't have Wi-Fi, I turn that on. I have my own little network. Most of the time. I've rarely found a place where Verizon doesn't have connectivity like that. So you have to have an internet connection. Many smartphones will also give you that capability where your smartphone itself can generate its own Wi-Fi network. So wherever you are, you can connect to the internet. So once you solve that problem, then you say, well, any device, right? That's marketing speak for most devices, right? It's puffery. It's one of my favorite marketing terms, right? Laptops, smartphones, tablets, things with a browser, things with some modest amount of processing power. But nowadays, more and more people use a smartphone as their primary internet device. More and more people. I was meeting with a client the other day, and I said, I asked him something about email. He goes, oh yeah, I spent last night sending email. I just sat there with my smartphone, watching TV, sending email to all my clients, and I thought, isn't that interesting, right? I mean, he doesn't even own a computer. I mean, it's all off of his smartphone. So it has to have the basic requirements, but beyond that, you don't need much more. Maintenance. There is no maintenance, really, for you if you're using a cloud computing solution. Someone else has the IT staff, right? If you need someone to keep some of your computer, if you're large enough to have a suite of computers or a bunch of employees using computers, yeah, maybe you need someone to make sure there's no viruses on the machines and so forth. But when you embrace cloud computing and use stuff that's out in the cloud, you don't need people on your IT staff that know how to troubleshoot software. You open a browser window, bang, it's there. The service provider, the person who hosts the application, does all of this in the background. No disruptions to your business. So think about the times that you have struggled with software problems. When I first started the Growth Coach business, someone had recommended to use ACT, which is a contact manager. I went out, I spent, I don't know, $200, $300. It's a very expensive, in my opinion, piece of bloatware. Right? It's a lot more software than anyone ever needs. And I used it for about a month and realized half the time it crashed, it wasn't really working, so I called them. They got me on, you know, they did some work. They remotely connected to my laptop at home from Seattle. And for 6 hours, 3 hours on Monday and 3 hours on Tuesday, they worked on trying to get my software to run properly, remotely. I sat there and I watched them kind of manipulate things I never wanted them to touch in my laptop, right? I mean, they were down in the depths of the operating system. They were doing things that I couldn't even begin to imagine how this worked. I wasted 2 days, basically, watching this show. They finally got it all working. The next day, I uninstalled ACT, and I started using an online contact manager, because I thought, I am not going to do this. And I was restricted. You know, we talked about access and mobility. If I didn't have my laptop, I didn't have my data with ACT. Right? So if I needed to look something up, I had to have my laptop. And if I was out meeting with clients, that really wasn't the easiest way to do it. With an online solution, I'm able to do that from my smartphone. More productivity. Do what you're good at. Do what the strategic part of your business is. Stop futzing around with technology. Unless you're paid to futz with technology, right? Do that a lot. No need to upgrade or update your software. It happens automatically. They come up with a new version, they do it. You don't have to install anything on your laptop, on your desktop to make it work. Who's had this? Who's lost data on their computer? Right? It's not a question of if your hard drive will fail. It is a question of when will your hard drive fail. They all fail, and they all fail at the worst possible time. There's just no way around it, right? Your hard drive will fail. Your computer will die. You will lose your data unless your data is elsewhere. And that's the other thing about cloud computing is it's out there. It's not here. Okay? You don't have to worry about it. They major in data recovery and data backup. I have a client up in Manchester, one of his, the company that he works with, has data centers in India, in Brazil, in China, in San Francisco, in New York. Right? It would take a really big disaster to destroy all those data centers, okay? Your data is going to survive. Security. A lot of people worry about security over the web, obviously for good reason. But with cloud computing, a lot of people begin to say, well, I'm just logging into this online site. And listen, they know, the people who provide cloud computing services know your biggest concern is security. Right? How many people in here use Facebook? How many people in here use LinkedIn? How many people use Twitter? Right? Here's the news, good or bad. You are in the cloud, right? Your pictures, your data, your birth dates, your everything is already in the cloud, right? You are at the mercy, to some extent, of the security, the knowledge of security that these folks provide. So, although I'm not an IT person, I don't have an IT company, I always tell people, if you're going to do this for your business, consult with someone in IT that can help you understand all the security issues. But frankly, they're better at security than you are. Okay? And one of the things you can do right away in terms of security is a lot of people will log into their online data and their online applications. But one thing I recommend most people do is create a power-on password for your laptop or your desktop. That is a password that will pop up before any of the operating system runs. Most people have a Windows password, right? But by the time your computer boots up to that point where the Windows password box comes up, it's too late. Because if someone had a flash drive or a CD properly configured, they could hijack your computer as they turned it on. And they could access everything that you have in it. So Google, which is the greatest invention ever, Google the term power-on password for your particular kind of computer and add one. And that will then protect your physical machine from being used to access your online data. Because that's really one of the easiest ways someone can get access to your online applications is just by sitting down at your computer and booting it up and hijacking it that way. And so that's actually more important than the fact that the data is out there. But again, these are experts who look at things like protecting against hackers and viruses. I mean, this is what they do because they know this is the biggest concern you have. And as much as they love small businesses, most cloud computing companies are looking to capture large businesses. And they have way more strict regulation about security than any of us in this room do. So that's what they're building these applications towards. So we're in pretty good shape as small business owners. The cost. So there is a predictable monthly fee associated with most cloud computing. It's more of a subscription model than it is a purchase model. If you buy QuickBooks and spend, I don't even know what QuickBooks is, $300, it's kind of crazy. Or Microsoft Office, right? These things add up. They're pretty expensive. With cloud computing, you're basically renting usage of the application on a month-to-month basis. And because most cloud computing vendors are looking for bigger fish in terms of clients, they often have free or very, very low-cost versions of their software that any business owner can use for the life of their business. One of my favorite applications is Evernote. We're going to talk about that and how it works and what I use it for. Evernote is free. I have used Evernote for 8 years. It is my one place where all of my notions, to-dos, ideas, reference information, I don't have bookmarks anywhere anymore. I just use Evernote. It is the one place everything goes, and I have not paid a penny for using it.
I'm using it right now for notes.
Isn't that, exactly, isn't it great? It's awesome, right? And if you pay for it, I think it's $50 or $60 or something, per year, and it gives you a little bit more capability, which I haven't had to use yet. So you can save money because they aren't necessarily looking to make a lot of money on individuals. They really are looking to sell it to corporations.
What about, you were saying in terms of renting usage of software?
Yep.
What about specialized software?
I think most industries have got someone who will offer some kind of specialized software. Give me an example of some that.
AutoCAD.
Well, I think there are online AutoCAD systems. As a matter of fact, Google just, last year or the year before, they introduced something called Google Sketch, which is a 3D AutoCAD type application, right? It's
Yeah.
very rudimentary. It's not
No,
complex.
yeah, for me, I have to have AutoCAD so I can talk to all my
Exactly.
clients.
But Adobe has an online Photoshop
Mhm.
now, which Photoshop's another very expensive application. You just go create an account and then some monthly fee, I don't know what it is, but you just pay monthly and you can access Adobe Photoshop without making that big upfront investment and without having to upgrade for an additional cost every year. It's just that monthly, and when you decide you don't want to use it any longer, you just drop it. I think the niche markets are an area where cloud computing will actually take, will be incorporated faster than in the general public, because folks like you are going to look at it and say, why am I struggling with AutoCAD, perhaps, when you have issues when I can just log in online? Because you've got the internet connection, you've got faster speeds on the internet now, so those large files come and go a lot easier, and it allows you to focus on your business, not on the technology. So I would just Google, online AutoCAD or AutoCAD in the cloud or something like that. There's lots of it. You can also, if you run a company, you can also have virtual computers, virtual PCs running in the cloud. I work with a client in Boston who's very much in the cloud computing space, and one of the things that they do is, if they have 200 employees, they only have 10 to 20 fully equipped computers. The rest are very lightweight, browser-based machines. They connect to Amazon. Amazon has a business service that they provide virtual computers. So your PC, your desktop machine, your laptop is in Amazon. Everything you do, you install things like you would install locally, but it's all done out there in Amazon on the cloud. And when they run out of capacity and they need more PCs, they just rent more computing power from Amazon. Just like a utility company delivering more electricity. This is where we're at with computing. It's less and less important in terms of the hardware that you use. It's just having the right application online. And it's predictable, right? Because you know what the monthly rate's going to be. You don't need to have space for computers. All those racks and racks and racks of machines that some companies have. Again, as small business owners, we probably don't have that big of an issue with it. But just think about the dust that collects, the dust bunnies that collect on all these computers, right? And the backup power supplies you need to make sure your PC doesn't die when you lose your power, right? These things are a thing of the past when you go to cloud computing. And then flexibility. So, very flexible, right? So you can change the number of users very quickly. Think about any time you've worked in a corporate job. A new employee comes on board, and there's this whole process of, here's your laptop, and here's your security pin, and we're going to log you in, and next Tuesday you're going to get your phone, and then a week after that we're going to train you on how to use the software. click, launch my browser, enter an ID, you're up and running. Right? There are companies that will, you know, custom and tailor the environment of a computing system for different kinds of companies. So if you work in a sales organization and you need access to customer relationship management, you need access to inventory, you need all that stuff from the browser, it's all presented to you. If you're a manager, you get more information. If you're a frontline person, maybe you get less information, but it's all customized and it's done quickly. All right, so that's kind of an overview of what cloud computing is and why I think it's a great avenue for business. So what I want to do next is, I just have here, I'll pass out these. I don't have copies of my slides, but I do have a list of all the software that we're going to talk about and all the websites where you can find it. Okay? So as we go through it, you can refer to that and you'll see what, where you could go to sign up for these services, these cloud computing services. So we talked about backup, right? Let's talk about backup. How many people back up their software off-site? Excellent. You guys are good, right? Carbonite, Mozy, these are two of the biggest backup providers that there are. You know that old commercial with, was it Ronco? With, you know, you put the guy that creates all these infomercial products, he puts the turkey inside the spinning oven and he says, you set it and forget it, right? That's what I think, you know, data backup should be. You set it up, you get it going, and then at night, or when the computer's not being used, it just backs up all your files. You can recover them when you need to, and it's great. When your hard drive fails, when your PC is lost, when you back up your car over your laptop mistakenly, you buy a new laptop, install Carbonite, you put in your user ID and password, and all your files magically reappear. Right? $50, $60 a year, very inexpensive for a full lot of peace of mind. Email. Email is something that we all take for granted, I think. We've become very email-centric as a society, and I think this is an area that we need to think about a little more. You know, these are 4 of the biggest email providers that are around. Gmail, Outlook.com, Zoho, which is a really good email provider, iCloud by Apple. But there's a couple things here. One, free email, right? Free is good. We love free. Gmail does a great job of giving you a free email account. What are you exchanging for your use of Gmail in terms of value? They're not charging you for it, so what are you exchanging?
Contact information.
Contact information. What else? What else does Google do with your email? Google reads your email.
Yeah.
All your email. Oh, yes. What? Right? Google has software that analyzes the words in your email. And I'll give you an example. When I get emails and I open up Gmail, you know, along the right-hand side, just like in Google, there are ads. Those ads are tailored to me. Sometimes there's ads for business coach stuff. Sometimes there's ads for like soccer coach or football coach, because they see the word coach in my emails, and they're like, it must be a coach. So they put an ad there like that. Humans don't read your email at Gmail, but Google has software that reads your email and decides what kind of ads to place along the side. There are some security settings you can change so that they do it less, or that they can't see all of it. And if you buy a paid version of Gmail, which is available, they don't do it at all. So that's just one thing to keep in mind. Although I love Gmail, I use it for everything. We'll talk about that in a minute. Outlook.com came out, I don't know, maybe a year or so ago. It's the replacement to Hotmail. Okay? If you have a Hotmail account, you can, I think, log into Outlook and continue using it. But if you have a Hotmail account, a Yahoo email account, an AOL account, I read an article recently that says people judge you by the email that you use. Okay? They do, right? They look at you and say, AOL? AO old, right? Right? So my recommendation is get a Gmail account, get an Outlook account, get a Zoho account, get an iCloud account, get something more current. It's crazy, but it is a branding thing, right? And people judge you by the email that you use. I guarantee they do. So pick one of these, or any of the other free email providers out there. and centralize your email, right? By that what I mean is, if you look at, if I were to take you into my Gmail account, these are all my email addresses, okay? I teach at Bentley, I teach at WPI, I do the business coaching thing, I got personal emails. From within Gmail, I can send email in any one of those email addresses.
So you can send from your Gmail, you
Yep.
can send an email to me from
From my Bentley
From
email.
Bentley.
Yep, exactly. And all my emails come into Gmail. All my Bentley email is forwarded into Gmail.
Is it distinguished that if you sent me a Bentley email, that I'm responding to your Bentley email, when you receive it, can you see that it's
Yep.
Bentley?
Yep. So when I get emails from my Bentley students,
Right.
when I go to respond, the Bentley email address is the default one here. When I get Coach Pooley emails or Growth Coach emails, those are the ones, that's the email for the response. And if not, sometimes it doesn't kind of pick it up, it just defaults to my Gmail account, and then as I send it, I can pick which email I want to send it from, right? But sending it is great, because you have to only work out of one inbox to send all these emails. Receiving it is even better, because you only have to look in one inbox to see all your emails. And my wife uses Outlook, because oddly enough, mrspooley@gmail.com is taken by somebody. I have no idea who that is, and I had to convince my wife that I really didn't know who that was. It's taken, it's not available, I don't know why, right? So Outlook was around, so she got Mrs. Pooley at Outlook.com. And all of her old Comcast emails forward there. She's got a Catherine Pooley at Gmail account that forwards there. So she uses Outlook as her central piece. You can do that with almost any email provider, but I recommend you do that because you don't want to waste time logging into different email accounts, right? And if you use Microsoft Outlook as your email client, which a lot of people do, I'm going to tell you something else. More bloatware, okay? Outlook causes computers to run slow. A lot of data collects in there. You don't delete stuff. It makes your PC run slow. You can't search very quickly. I weaned myself off of Outlook years ago, and then I used something called Thunderbird, which was a free online email client on my PC. And then in the past year, I made it a goal of my own to wean myself off of any email client. So I use no local client. Everything is on the cloud. Because I figure I have to eat my own dog food, as we used to say down here, right? And practice what I preach. Here's another nice thing about Google, and I'm sure Outlook.com and the others, pretty much unlimited storage. Every time I log into my Gmail account, it tells me I've got even more storage available to me. I think I've used like 20% of my storage. I think I have 30,000 emails in there, right? Another nice thing, I don't clean my inbox. I rarely even sort my emails by folder. A lot of people sort their emails by folder. Why? Google is the leader in search technology. If I need to find an email from Jeff, I just type Jeff at the top of my email thing, and every email I got from Jeff appears. If I need to find an email about Legos, I type that in my little search box, and every email I've ever sent or received about Legos shows up in the last 10 years, right? You could actually spend less time organizing your data, because Google does such a nice job of searching it and bringing it forward. And again, I think Outlook and Zoho and the others do that as well. It's just that I use Gmail, of course. Yep.
Is this still the free one, or is this?
This is free.
That's the free
It's
one
free.
that does that?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Yes,
What
Karen?
if you have an old account, like for example, an old AOL,
Yes.
and you're like, oh, I have all this stuff, can you kind of forward those or somehow save them and then close them?
You can immediately forward emails from AOL to the new account that you create. That's one thing you could absolutely do. The stuff that's already there, you could just forward it yourself. You could select 100 of them and just forward them,
Okay, so it's a
en masse to your new account, right? Which,
You want them.
if you want to keep them, right? Exactly.
What about like if you have like years of history that you don't want to get rid of? Like,
Yeah.
I don't want to get rid of client
Right.
history because it might come up someday.
That's right.
I need to look at.
So you could either forward it into a Gmail account where you would be able to search it probably quicker than you can now, I don't know. Or you'd have to download it into some kind of an Excel spreadsheet or a database and have that as your kind of archive of information. Right? The other thing you might be able to do is, if you can get it into the right format, you could then import it into a CRM system so that you don't have just your contact list, but you've got all the notes and information associated with each particular contact. It might take a little bit of trickery,
Yeah.
matching up a field.
That sounds like a consultant's job.
It might be, yeah, exactly. Don't do that yourself, exactly, don't do that yourself. All right, so office productivity. Word processing, spreadsheets, presentations, etc. Who uses Microsoft Office? Yeah, that's an easy one to ask, right? That's a very expensive piece of software, depending on the version you get at times. It used to be a lot more expensive too. There are online free alternatives to Microsoft Office. Google Docs, which is now called Google Drive, provides you with an online suite of productivity tools. Word processing, spreadsheets, presentations, drawing. This is, the drawing, it's a very rudimentary drawing program. You can create online forms. If you want to create an online form on your website to take client information or capture information or survey, you can actually create surveys in Google Drive as well. And the nice thing about it is it's all compatible with Microsoft Office, which was always the biggest hurdle in the past was, does it work with Microsoft Office files? Because if not, I'm not even going to consider it. Google Drive does, and it gives you a complete suite, and it's free, zero cost. A lot of my students at Bentley do use Google Drive when they work on their projects. Now they have Microsoft Office offered to them while they're undergraduates. They get basically quote-unquote free, although it's in the tuition somewhere, right? But when they graduate, their laptops get wiped completely. They keep the hardware, they lose all the software. But they use Google Drive for another important reason. They can collaborate on documents together when they're physically separated from one another. Right? So they can have a Skype thing going on, they can be talking about a document, they can all be editing the same document at the same time. So that's another nice thing, is that you could actually share any of the documents you have in here with anyone else. They don't have to have Microsoft Office installed, they don't have to have anything but access to the internet. Do more, spend less, that's kind of the mantra here. But of course, Microsoft has its own online version of Microsoft Office. And I think the pricing starts at like $5 or $10 a month. So you can create an account and do all the stuff you can do with Google Drive, pay a little more if you feel safer using Microsoft. Again, that's another way to reduce a lot of cost.
So using the Microsoft Word, Excel,
Exactly.
PowerPoint.
But it's the online version, so you don't install anything locally. And then these are not necessarily cloud services. These are free alternatives that you can download and install on your own machine, and they all work with Microsoft Office files. So OpenOffice, which has been around for a long time, openoffice.org, will allow you to create any of those documents that we just talked about. I worked on a product called IBM Lotus Symphony when I was at IBM. Same thing, download for free onto your machine. LibreOffice, all of these are very much related, and this one is for if you're a Mac user, NeoOffice, also free, all free. Free because they're all developed by, in most cases, an open source community. Just a bunch of geeks that like working together online and putting stuff together, and then they get organized, and then they've got stuff like this, which really saves you a lot of time and money. So you don't have to use Office. And I had a colleague at IBM who went online and made a proclamation, this was years ago when I was working there. He said, I'm going to spend a year and not use one Microsoft product. He switched to a Mac, he used Lotus Symphony, he can use anything that was related to Microsoft, and he reported on it every week, and he was fine. He was fine. All right. File sync, synchronizing your files. Okay, so there's one thing to back up your files, but when you use file synchronization software, you're able to put your files on the cloud, and then every device you have can have a copy of all your files. So if you're working on a press release for someone.
No, you're getting that reaction because I just got a new computer this summer.
Yeah.
And there's an icon that says sync up.
Sync up. Might be another one of these
I'm
providers.
thinking I might already be in the cloud.
You might be in the cloud, and you don't even know it.
And I didn't even know.
Look at you. Look at you.
I
You're a cloud whisperer. So I use Dropbox. I've used Dropbox for a long time. Basically, I got tired of using the sneaker net. This is an old term from back in the 80s. The sneaker net was in hospitals when they would have files that they wanted to transfer from one station to another. They would download it onto a CD, And they'd run down the hall in their sneakers and they'd bring it to the other computer and they'd put it in there and they'd transfer the file, right? And so this means you don't have to do that kind of manual manipulation of your files. Stop emailing yourself files, right? That's another thing, right? Keep everything synchronized. That means I edited my laptop, my PowerPoint presentation just before we started. When I save it to Dropbox, and I launch my laptop later on, or my PC at Bentley, or my PC at home, every change I made in this presentation filters down into all of my computing devices, all of them. My files will always be synchronized, one to the other. That's a huge problem for a lot of people, keeping that information synchronized. Dropbox works great. There's another thing called box.com that works great. Google Drive gives you free synchronization up to a certain limit, I think maybe 5 gigabytes of information. Yep.
Now, is that information like on Dropbox, is it actually on your computer or is it actually in the cloud? Like,
This
you can't
one is
figure that
both.
out.
This one is both. It's both. You will have it on your computer in your office and it will be up in the cloud. Some people use Dropbox for data recovery too, as their backup as well. I like having a separate backup. I like having, Carbonite and Dropbox. I think I pay $100 a year and I have 200 gigabytes of storage in Dropbox. I don't think I've cracked 100 yet. Okay. But I make a change at home. I don't have to carry a laptop or remember to take my thumb drive to Bentley. When I get to Bentley, I open that file and it's all synchronized. Yep.
Really, I love Dropbox. What's the difference between Dropbox and Box?
They're almost the same. I think they're virtually the same, as is Google Drive for storage, as is SugarSync, right? And that's the thing, that, I've used Dropbox. I've never used SugarSync or Box. I use Google Drive, but I don't use it for synchronization. But I'm glad you asked it, because here's something that occurs in cloud computing that confuses people. There's a lot of overlapping capability, right? Especially when you talk about Google. They have so much free stuff available that they can't help but it's kind of overlap with what other people provide. So, all of these work great. But they all get reviewed really highly and they work great.